Hi.
How you doing?
I'm fine.
Awesome.
Good morning, David.
Good morning, Martin.
It's our second day
Yeah.
here in Sweden, in Stockholm, at your office. And we have another topic which we should talk about. And this topic is about copyright infringements, and you had a court case during the last weeks or months, I suppose, probably in Sweden. And I just want to ask you about what has happened.
Right. So in end of June, we were notified that there was a court case targeting us from the Right Alliance, which basically represented two movie companies in Sweden and Denmark. And they wanted to get user information about a specific user who had an IP address at, I believe it was the 2nd of June. Because according to them and the court case, this IP address was the IP address that hosted the Pirate Bay. So it's been quite a process, actually, this entire thing, because it's the Right Alliance started the process by actually targeting our internet provider because they thought the IP address was theirs. So they started an information injunction against them, and when they were alerted that, all right, this is not even our IP address, this is OVPN's IP address, they basically closed that injunction and opened up an identical one targeting us.
So we wanted to know who was the guy who was downloading most probably a film.
So in this case, they wanted to know who was basically running the Pirate Bay, because according to them, the IP address was the IP address that hosted the piratebay.org. But we're not sure if that's the case. We could never prove it. And throughout this process, we never knew which user it was. So it was a 2-month process with a lot of documents and argumentation, sending back and forth. And eventually...
the court wanted to force you to give them the details, yes?
Exactly. So they wanted basically all of the details about this specific user account. And as soon as we were notified about the injunction, we retained legal counsel. And we could do that partly because we have an insurance that helps us cover trial costs. So within an hour of me actually receiving the injunction, I had already called several lawyers and talked to them about the case. And then we were in contact with a lawyer that had a previous history with these type of information injunctions. So together with him, we basically built up a case and eventually won, which we're very thrilled about, because it shows that running a privacy-oriented VPN service in Sweden is entirely possible. And 14 eyes isn't really relevant in these senses.
Why do you mention 14 Eyes? Was it an American company, or why do you mention this in this?
Yeah. No, but a lot of people believe that if you run a VPN service in 14 Eyes, you need to have logs to be able to...
I mean, 14 Eyes, came out of the Edward Snowden documents, where it was mentioned in some PowerPoint presentations, in some leaks, yes, exactly. There was running that there is different kind of countries. There is the countries, the United States, Great Britain, Canada, maybe Australia and Japan, which are working very, very close to United States security agencies, yeah. And they call this I don't know, the 5 eyes and this 14 eyes and 21 eyes and something like this. And Sweden is mentioned in one of these files.
Exactly.
Of course, that doesn't mean that there is a cooperation in all spheres.
No.
Yeah? It means, as you mentioned yesterday already, it means that it's a military cooperation
Yeah.
for military secrets that try to be gathered.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you for clarifying that. It's basically a military agreement to share information regarding potential threats and all of these activities.
Okay, you won. What does it mean? You have won. So you cannot be forced to give data.
Exactly. So we won the case because we did not have any information, and we are not legally bound to have any information about who had this IP address. So by winning the court case, we set a precedent in Sweden, because it's the first court case that's regarding getting information from a VPN company. So it really sets a precedent for all other VPN companies as well, that they can lean back on this verdict and be confident in the way that they don't need to keep logs. And for our users, it's reassuring to know that we're actually been proven to keep our word when it comes to our no logs policy, which historically has always been a issue that's very debated in the VPN community. Like, all right, the VPN says it doesn't keep logs, but does it? How do we know? What happens if something happens, right? Because there are instances when a VPN provider has said that they don't keep logs, but then when an agency or something in court happens, they can actually give them logs, right? So in this case, OVPN really show that we're very honest, we're very transparent. There are 3 articles on our website that I've published throughout this process, really detailing the information and what has happened up until that point.
Yeah, many companies most probably would not be so transparent in this way, because it's a topic that could lower the interest from the users, because we believe most probably they have something to do with authorities. We are cooperating in the worst case. Yeah. But this case also proves that you were not cooperating, you were fighting against such decisions. Yeah. And it is a proof that, first of all, you don't have logs which can identify users. And even court in Sweden, and this is the legislation where you are based. Exactly. Yeah, it doesn't matter what American law says, or Austrian, or German, or Spanish, exactly. Because all servers in your own on your own, and the IP address is registered on your name, and so on. So everything means that it happens in Sweden legislation, in Sweden law, yeah. And they cannot force you to give any details about private users or private people. But let me ask one question: what would happen if this would be a criminal? I mean, copyright infringements are not right. Yeah, it's not good to harm the rights of anyone else, of course. But it's a civil case, more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a prosecution case.
Exactly.
What would happen if a prosecution case would happen?
I mean, it's the same thing. We can't turn on or off logging and run our company, so it's always off. It doesn't matter who the other party is that want information from us. So it's just we don't want that to happen. We of course don't want people to use our service to do criminal activities and try to hide their tracks. But we have decided to run a privacy-oriented service, and then you can't really pick and choose all these actions. So. And like you said, we're based in Sweden. The actual server and IP address that this was about was in the Netherlands. But everything was still in Sweden because we're based in Sweden. So it's really this legislation that matters for us. And it ensures that we can run
servers everywhere.
Yeah, servers everywhere under the same laws.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you very much for this detailed explanation.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I'm sure our readers will appreciate your transparency and honesty.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you, David.